can start. So, Namaskar, Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. I hope all of you are doing well by the grace of Lord Krishna. So, today we will take up some topic that is of relevance in our sadhana. There are two stories again today also that I have put together. I mean, the stories have been existing since long time, but I have combined the two stories so that we can learn some concept from that. So the first story is that of a great saint from Maharashtra called Tukaram. So Tukaram was a very big bhakta of Panduranga, Vithala. He used to always keep chanting the Lord's names, and he was very well known in his area. Now, once there were some people in his village, they said we are going on a pilgrimage, a Tirth Yatra, and they invited Tukaram ji and they said, please, Tukaram ji, you also come along with us. Let us go visit these Tirtha Kshetras and all. It seems there is a lot of punya in going to Tirtha Kshetra. So let us all go and come. So Tukaram, he was not very inclined to go at that time. And he said, okay, fine, you people carry on. But as my representative, please carry this. And he gave them one, bitter gourd, hagalkai, karela. He gave into their hand and he said, you please take this bitter gourd as my representative. Whichever temple you go, wherever you go for darshan, you please carry the bitter gourd with you so that also gets the darshan. Then you please, whichever holy river you are taking a dip in, you are bathing and doing snan in the Tirtha Kshetra, in the, nadi there. You please dip this karela also into that water, into that nadi water. Let it also get the punya of having gone on the Tirtha Kshetra. And then when you come back, you bring and give the karela back to me. So they do as he has instructed. They're wondering why he's telling all this, but then they don't question much. They go for the pilgrimage and then those villagers come back and they return that bitter gourd back to Tukaram. So he takes it and then he invites them all for a feast. He says, you have all gone for Tirtha Kshetra. It is very, punya if we have a feast, offering of food to people who have come back from a Tirtha Yatra. We get punya by doing that. So you please come. I have prepared a feast for you. So they come and then he has cooked that bitter gourd in that meal and he serves it to them. And he says, how is it? How is the bitter gourd? He asks them. They say, oh, it's so bitter. So Tukaram tells them, see, this bitter gourd, it went with you to all the Tirtha Kshetras. It went and had darshan of God in so many places. It took snan in so many, punya nadis. But see, it has not changed at all. It has remained bitter. So through this story, he was trying to teach them the concept that ultimately what matters is not only externally going to a place of worship or doing snan in a Tirtha Kshetra, but that transformation has to take place. So if you simply go mechanically and you come back, the people who go with that kind of a spirit, that as if they are going like a holiday, or they are simply going there because it is supposed to be a good place or it's supposed to give us punya, and then they just come back, then there is no effect of having gone on the pilgrimage. So then such people are equivalent to that bitter gourd which went but nothing happened. It continued to be bitter. So that is the message that he was trying to tell through this story. Now, closely related to this concept of change and how we must be aware when we are doing sadhana is this story which appears in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is one of the Krishna Cheshtitas, one of the Krishna Leelas that is told. Once when Krishna went with all the other Gopa boys, they all went into the forest and they were grazing cows. And that day they had not taken food and gone with them. And they were all very hungry. So Krishna felt very hungry. And then close to that place where they were in the forest, they could hear some mantras being chanted and they could see the smoke from some fire. So they realized that, okay, there are some brahmanas here and they are performing some yajna and homa. So they wanted, they realized that, okay, somebody is there here who can give us the food. So what happened is Krishna told the other Gopa boys, he said, you please go to those brahmanas and you bring some food from them. I'm feeling very hungry. So these Gopas went there And then they asked the Brahmanas, they said, okay, some part of that yajna was completed. So they said, okay, that part is all over. So now it should be okay for you to give us the food. Krishna has come, Balarama has come. We are all in the forest. We are grazing our cows. We are feeling very hungry. So you please give us some food. At that time, the Brahmanas who were doing that yajna, they said, no, no, no way. We can't give any food to you people. Still, the Purnahuti has to happen. All the food has to be offered into the Agni in the Homakunda. And after that, all the Brahmanas have to be fed. And so much Annadana has to be done to all the Brahmanas who are here. And after that, only we will be able to give it to you. So we can't give you this. And they sent those Gopas away. These Gopas were very sad and they came back empty-handed and they narrated all this to Krishna. So Krishna smiled and then he said, no, you go back, but this time you don't go to the Brahmanas, go to the wives of the Brahmanas, go to the Dvijapatnis or the Viprapatnis. Go to them. They will know what to do. So the Gopas went and they went to the Dvijapatnis and they told them that like this Krishna and Balarama, we are there in the forest, we are all feeling very hungry, and Krishna said to come and ask you to give us some food. As soon as they heard this from the Gopas, these women, the Brahmana Patnis, they were so carried away that they said, oh, the God has come, Krishna has come, and he is Lord incarnate, so we have to go and give him whatever food is there. They were not bothered. These rishis were telling them that don't go, what is that, all that food is for the Homa, we have to first offer it to Agni. These women were not in a state of mind to listen. They were totally carried away by the thought that they have to take everything to God. And that is why what they did was they packed up immediately all the food, and with so much bhakti in their heart, with so much love for Krishna, they came rushing to the forest with all that food and they offered it to Krishna and Balarama and all the Gopas. What was the spirit of the Brahmana Patnis? And why? How are the Brahmanas different? Who are the people who were actually learned in the Vedas, the Upanishads, and all that? It was the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas were the ones who knew that everything in this world is Krishna, everything in the world is Narayana. They knew everything. And they know also that when whatever is offered into the Homa, it is given to Agni. But through Agni, whom does it reach ultimately? Whatever is offered into the Yajna ultimately reaches Lord Narayana. So Agni is a vehicle who's going to carry that to Krishna ultimately. And here is Sakshat Krishna himself who has come and he is ready to accept, but they didn't have the heart and the mind to give. Their intellect was clouded over. All that Veda Jnana that they had, all the knowledge, so-called knowledge that they had, all their learning, what was the use of all that? And on the other hand, their wives, they had no Veda Jnana, they had no knowledge of the Shastras, they knew nothing, but there was so much bhakti in their heart. And they didn't care. The Brahmanas were telling them, don't go, this is not correct, this, that. But they were just not bothered. Just like the gopis had so much love for Krishna, the Brahmana Patnis also had so much love for Krishna. And they knew that whatever it is him whom we have to offer our things to. So they, without any worldly, without any spiritual knowledge of the Shastras or any such thing, but with love in their heart, they went and offered it to Krishna. So from this we can understand which is the superior action. Is it to say that Homa is not yet over, I have to still give it to Agni and then only I can give it to Krishna? Or is it to go and offer to Krishna directly and get his blessings? So from these two stories of the bitter gourd that went on a pilgrimage and came back bitter, and the Brahmanas who were doing Homa but did not offer to Krishna, and the Brahmana Patnis who directly offered to Krishna. What message can we take from a combination of these two stories? What relevance does it have for us when we are talking about sadhana and spiritual practice? So let us think about these aspects, something for us to ponder upon. Whatever sadhana we may be doing, are we doing it just as rituals, mechanically, with only our body? Or are we mentally imbibing the spirit of whatever it is that we are doing? Many times we see so many people, they will be doing puja. They do an elaborate puja. They do so much time they spend in doing puja. That is good, we must do. But has that spirit of that puja penetrated into their heart, into their mind? Has that spirit of puja changed their behavior? Have they learned to see God in everybody around them? Okay. Many times we have the habit of singing bhajans or we recite stotras. Are we able to follow the spirit of that bhajan or that stotra? Or is it something that I'm only intellectually reciting, that I have learned it and I'm mechanically, because now my memory, it is stored. So do I just go on saying it mechanically? Or am I paying attention to every word that I'm saying? Am I trying to experience the bhava of what that bhajan or that stotra is trying to say? Am I trying to worship God through that mindfully, realizing that this is a madhyam for me to do that puja? Unless we think in this aspect, there is this concept of mindfulness which has become very big in, so-called meditation circles and in the Western world. What is that mindfulness? It means to be aware, to stay aware of what is happening at every moment. So in our sadhana, whatever we may be doing, whether we are doing puja, whether we are doing tirtha yatra, whether we are going to a temple, whether we are chanting God's name, whether we are reciting stotras, whether we are listening to Bhagavad Katha, whether we are listening to some upanyasa, to some pravachana, whatever we may be doing, are we in it fully, mind, body, soul, everything together? Or is it that simply we are mechanically listening and our thoughts are elsewhere? Or we are reciting but our thoughts are elsewhere? Definitely, yes, rather than, talking gossip or singing songs from movies, it is definitely better to sing bhajans. It is definitely better to listen to katha. It is definitely better to sing stotras, to recite stotras. But further than that, we need to go to the stage where we pay attention to what we are doing, and we have to align our thoughts with our actions. What is it that I'm saying in the bhajan? What is it that the stotra is telling me to do? That surrender to God, remember God always. Am I following that? When trouble comes to my path, what do I do? Am I able to, at that moment, remember that yes, this is what is told, that we must surrender to God? So at that point of time, do I remember to say to God that, oh God, you take care of whatever has to be done. You be there for me. You give me the strength to deal with this. Do we do that? This is what we need to think. This is what is the meaning of mindfulness in our sadhana. So that whatever we have learned, whatever we have heard that we should be doing, it should not remain at the level of words, but it should penetrate deeper, and it should make a change. It should cause some kind of a transformation from within. Unfortunately, even if we observe around us, there are many people whom we see who are supposedly very devout, or very have seem to have a lot of bhakti, but then the actions that they perform in their life may not be matching with that. As a result of that, what happens is people make, kind of comments that they are supposed to be bhakta, but what they are doing is not actually correct. We've heard that, what is that one proverb, no? They say, ಮಾಡೋದೆಲ್ಲ ಅನಾಚಾರ ಮನೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಬೃಂದಾವನ. So this kind of maligning of God or maligning of bhakti, or giving bhakti a bad name, happens when people who are externally doing lot of spiritual practice do not behave in a manner which shows that it has penetrated within. So that is something that we need to. It is not about us looking at other people and judging them. Everybody in this world is doing as per their own buddhi, and God will take everyone at their pace. But let us learn that whatever we do as our sadhana, somewhere it should bring about some kind of a transformation within us. And what is that transformation that we are looking for? There are two, what you say, criteria by which we can judge whether transformation is happening. Our gunas must increase and our doshas must reduce. So if this is happening, then that means that my spiritual practice is taking me on the right path. Whatever good qualities are there, We must try and imbibe those qualities. If we are thinking of God, if we are chanting His name, then He is the one who is the storehouse of all the gunas, isn't it? So gradually we must start imbibing all those qualities of the Lord. We may not get them all, or we may not get them in large proportion. But the point to ponder is, yesterday what I was, today have I changed in some way? Yesterday how I was, have I reduced my doshas in some way? Is the guna increasing and is the dosha reducing? This is what we must be looking at in ourselves. Are we able to feel love for God through our spiritual practices? Whatever sadhana I'm doing, has it brought me closer to a feeling that wells up within, from deep within, that kind of, bhava, that kind of spiritual emotion, that kind of feeling of thankfulness to God or feeling of love for God? Does that happen to me? Or am I simply doing something mechanically? Am I doing it with the feeling that, oh, I have to do this? Or do I do it with affection, out of love for God? And then, as we said in the Tukaram story, when we go to a temple, when we go to a holy place, are we trying to soak in, to imbibe the atmosphere of that place? Does that visit help to bring about some kind of inner transformation? If it does not, then whatever place we have gone to, it will be as if we have gone for a picnic. Many times nowadays, it has become very easy for us to travel. We have lot of conveniences. In the past, it was so difficult, isn't it? Like for something like going to Tirupati, for example. Now it is so easy. You hear people saying off and on that they are going to Tirupati. There are all conveniences. We have buses, we have trains, and there also there is transportation right to the top of the hill. Then there are special queues for darshan. There's so much convenience. But in the past, when it was not so well developed, it was so difficult. You had to battle all that tough terrain. There were no steps also. You had to go walking through the forest, always the danger of animals, and you didn't know what all would happen. People who went for Tirtha Yatra would never be sure whether they will come back. And in that process, that taking trouble to go and see God, that itself was a form of tapascharya. So that was what brought about the transformation within. But now, when everything has become so easy, where is the chance for us to feel that we want to go in an AC coach or in an AC bus. We want to stay in a hotel, we will stay in an AC room. We want to go, we don't take climb up, or we take the easy way of going by bus. And then when we have to wait for some time in the queue also, we feel, oh, what is this, we paid so much and what is this queue and all that. So if we go with that kind of a spirit, are we really doing it like a tirtha yatra, or are we going as if we are going on a picnic? So these are all things that we can think about and we can ponder over to try and understand how our sadhana can progress if we are mindful when we do all our spiritual practices. Okay. So for today, one shloka that I have kept is this one, which talks about what is the meaning of purity, or how can one become pure in a complete sense, in the real sense. It says, Om apavitra pavitrova sarvavastham gatopiva yasmaret pundari kaksham sa bahya vyantara shuchihi. So whether one is apavitram, impure, or they are pavitra, pure, sarvavastham, whatever be your situation, whatever be the condition, who is it that is pure? The one who Yasmaret Pundarikaksham. Pundarikaksha is the Lord, Sriman Narayana. It is the Lord Vishnu. It is Lord Krishna. His eyes are like lotuses. Pundarikaksham, that Lord, if you remember him, then at that moment of remembering him, you will be pure in every possible way, not only externally, but also internally. So we must remember this and try and keep chanting the Lord's name as much as possible at all times. So we will go next to the bhajan. Usha, are you ready? Will you sing? Yeah, you can start, Usha. We are not able to hear Uma.
Hello.
Yeah, Usha, now I can hear. Please go ahead.
Okay. You're able to hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry for that. ನೆರೆನಂಬಿದೆ ಮಧೃದಯಮಂಟಪದೊಳು ಪರಿಶೋಭಿಸುತ್ತಿರು ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ಪರಿಶೋಭಿಸುತ್ತಿರು ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ಶರಣ ಜನರ ಸಂಸಾರ ಮಹಾಭಯ ಹರಣ ಕರುಣ ಸಿರಿ ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ಶರಣ ಜನರ ಸಂಸಾರ ಮಹಾಭಯ ಹರಣ ಕರುಣ ಸಿರಿ ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ನೆರೆದಿಹ ಬಹು ಜನರೊಳಿದ್ದರೂ ಮನಸ್ಥಿರವಿಡು ನಿನ್ನಲಿ ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ಪರಿ ಪರಿ ಕೆಲಸವು ನಿನ್ನ ಮಹಾಪೂಜೆ ನಿರುತಯನಗೆ ಕೊಡು ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ಪರದೇವನೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಲೀಲಾ ಸ್ಮೃತಿಯನ್ನು ನಿರುತಯನಗೆ ಕೊಡು ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ಪರರಾಪೇಕ್ಷೆಯ ಬಿಡಿಸಿ ನಿರಂತರ ಪರಗತಿ ಪಥ ತೋರೋ ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ಸುಖವಾಗಲಿ ಬಹು ದುಃಖವಾಗಲಿ ಸಖ ನೀನಾಗಿರು ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ನಿಖಿಳಾಂತರ್ಗತ ವ್ಯಾಸ ವಿಠಲ ತವ ಮುಖ ಪಂಕಜ ತೋರೋ ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ನೆರೆ ನಂಬಿದೆ ಮಧೃದಯ ಮಂಟಪದೊಳು ಪರಿಶೋಭಿಸುತ್ತಿರು ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ನೀ ಪರಿಶೋಭಿಸುತ್ತಿರು ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ಶರಣ ಜನರ ಸಂಸಾರ ಮಹಾಭಯ ಹರಣ ಕರುಣ ಸಿರಿ ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ಶರಣ ಜನರ ಸಂಸಾರ ಮಹಾಭಯ ಹರಣ ಕರುಣ ಸಿರಿ ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ. Thank you.
Very nice, Usha. Thank you so much. Dhanyavada. Yeah, so after the bhajan, we will next offer Kritagnata, and then if there are questions, I think Shobha has asked something, we will take it up. Let us first offer Kritagnata. Let us offer gratitude at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and to join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to be on us always. Yeah. Shobha had asked a question. Didn't the Brahmanas knew that the Gopas are sent by their Lord? They did not recognize that Krishna is the Lord himself. They thought of Krishna and Balaram as just one of the Gopas, as somebody who is the son of Nanda and like that. So they did not recognize. But their patnis, they had bhakti in their heart. They had heard of how everybody talked that Krishna and Balarama are actually incarnations of the Lord. So they knew and they sensed it in their heart.
But
And,
you said Agni is the representative of the Lord Krishna.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It is not that Agni is representative of the Lord. It is like, okay, Agni, Indra, all of them, they are devatas, isn't it? So they
Yes.
are deities. They have limited powers, and whatever they are, it is actually not a individual who is there. It is a post, even that of Brahma and all. They are just like designations. They are a post. Any Atma that has done a lot of punya will get to fill that post. So they are deities, and they require food. They can only consume that which is offered through the yajna. But it is said that they are also having their power, whatever power they have. It is ultimately the power of the Lord himself, of the Paramatma, that is manifested in them. So whatever is offered to them, when they consume, because the Lord is Antaryami within them also, it is as if it is ultimately it is reaching Paramatma himself. So in saying that they are not exactly, we can't say they are representative of the Lord, but they owe their power and their Shakti to the Lord himself. So whatever is offered in the yajna, it will go to them, no doubt, but ultimately it is going to reach the Lord himself. Did you get the point of what I'm saying, Shobha?
Yes, ma'am. But even if the Gopas have come there to that place asking for some food, they didn't recognize and they didn't have proper bhakti, or they didn't know the signs of Krishna.
Yeah, they could not recognize, because that is the point, that although you may have lot of knowledge and jnana of the concepts of what the Shastras are telling, what the Vedas are saying on and all that, but for that to translate, ultimately that jnana has to get converted into bhakti, isn't it? So only
Yes.
when there is devotion in the heart, you will be able to recognize, you will be able to see what is the reality. That way. Yeah.
One thing to also put it is, like, probably they were like so focused on the ritual itself that they lost focus on who it is reaching ultimately.
Yeah, correct. They were tied up in the ritualistic aspects, and their whole focus was on the ritual. Now, the way the Upanishads also tell that who is the Parabrahma ultimately, and what is it that is happening when you do a yajna. But they were so caught up in the ritual, they were so caught up in the performing the activity, that that further contemplation had not taken place. Correct, Tushar. What you told is right. Shobha is also asking, how do we know that our doshas are reducing? How can we not know? If today I'm getting angry all the time, 10 times in a day, and tomorrow I get angry only 8 times in a day, definitely my dosha is reducing. Today, if I feel that
So
whatever
here,
is there,
dosha
I want to.
refers to patience, or how do we know that we are transforming internally?
Yeah, because we will see that whatever good qualities in us, they are going on increasing, or qualities that we don't have, we start developing those good qualities. Maybe at first I was not able to feel kind towards others, but now I'm feeling more kind towards somebody. Maybe before I was getting angry more often, now I'm getting angry less often. Maybe my patience has increased, maybe my jealousy has reduced, maybe my way of talking has changed, maybe I'm able to appreciate other people's viewpoint. All what I could not do before, the good things I'm able to do now. Only thing is that this may not be, it will not be a drastic change. No, it is not suddenly that today I was getting angry all the time and tomorrow I will become a sant, a sadhu. It is not going to happen like that. But we must watch out for the small changes which take place. It will happen, no doubt. But that is what, again, I have to, if I know that this is what is supposed to happen and I'm supposed to watch for it, then I will start trying to practice it also more. I know now because I mentioned this point today, now we know that our doshas should reduce and our gunas should increase. So now, whenever we are doing sadhana, we can keep watching and we can keep seeing. Now we know that that is a goal that towards which I have to work, that I have to try and reduce my dosha. I have to try and increase my gunas. So I will be more watchful of what I am doing, how I am behaving, isn't it? If we don't know what doshas we have, then the only thing we need to do, the very simple thing we need to do is we need to ask people around us to be honest and to tell us what do you think are the defects in me. Many times we know ourselves, but many times if we think that we are not knowing, we are not able to understand, you ask somebody around, someone who knows you very well. If we ask that person, what do you think I need to change in myself, they will give you a big list. Then we can go and start working on each of those one by one. Of course, sometimes we think that people will have vested interest in pointing out our defects, but we should not bother about what is their interest. If what they are telling, it is going to be useful for me. If I can change something in myself, and I will grow, because ultimately the idea is to develop all those qualities to become more and more sattvic, right? So whatever doshas we have, they are because of the rajoguna, because of the tamoguna that is there in us. So we must reach beyond that rajo and tamoguna. We have to try and develop sattva guna. So for that, we have to get rid of the doshas and we have to try and develop the gunas. So by doing that only, we will progress ahead. And doing that is our sadhana. feeling bhakti and all these things are there, no doubt. But if I can, only when I'm singing bhajan, I'm feeling very loving towards God. And then I shout at people all around me, right? God is there in them also. So in what way is that a right spirit in which to do my sadhana? That when I'm doing my chanting, I'm very calm and quiet. And at all other times, I'm only irritable and shouting at everybody around me. Then that does not gel, isn't it? So then it indicates that I'm only doing my chanting mechanically. If I had really done, I should have watched, I should have wanted that change to happen. And I should try and control my behavior with the other people. So, like that, that is what I was trying to say. Is it clear, Shobha, or have I confused you?
No, ma'am. That's what I have to see what changes and what are the changes. I mean, transformation. I am
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah,
after
yeah. We have to
doing the
watch. We have
sadhana.
to, yeah, we have to watch for
I have to
ourselves.
watch myself.
Yeah, that is very important. Does anybody else have anything to add or to share? Yeah.
Can I just add like very small thing to what you
Yeah,
said? Regarding the
definitely.
doshas, they say that two things will happen for the wrong emotions or thoughts. One is the frequency will reduce, like you just explained. If you're getting angry 10 times, probably it will become 8 times and lesser over the time. And the other thing is, if you are getting angry and you're holding that anger for like a day or two, next time you'll not be able to hold it for that long. You'll feel like, okay, let it go. And that intensity will start reducing, both they say.
Yeah,
So
correct.
that
Very
way we
true.
know. And one more thing is, when you're doing the sadhana, don't worry too much about the dosha reducing also. You keep on doing your sadhana. Someday somebody around you, like Akka said, they are noticing the doshas. So if there is any transformation that is happening you, and your dosha is reducing, there will be some person around you, your family member or your friend or somebody pointing it out. How come you have changed? There's some change in you. Somebody is like sure to point that out to you. So don't to worry too much about the dosha reducing. Also, just continue your sadhana, I would say.
Yeah, correct. Very true, Shaure. Very good point. And uh, one way is to try and consciously reduce the dosha. But many times that if that is a little tougher, then we can concentrate on trying to increase the guna. So what will happen is automatically, it's like when there's dirty water in a tank and you start draining out, then from top, if you start filling in fresh water, good quality water, then automatically that water in the tank will become clean at some point of time. So that is okay. We should try and keep focusing on the positive, what we can imbibe, what spirit we can take. So we have less than 1 minute left. So I think we will stop here for today. So thank you everybody for joining in. And it's really very nice to have all of you participating, asking questions and sharing your thoughts. So we'll meet again next Tuesday, same time at 6:30. Namaskar. I will be posting the video later so that whoever didn't attend, they can watch it. Thank you so much. Namaskar.